Hi scholars, welcome back to Read Aloud. Today we are reading a new text called Fireflies. The author and illustrator is Julie Brinklow. As we read today's story, we are going to be focusing on making inferences. That means we use what the text tells us and our personal experience to figure out what the author doesn't say. We pay attention to the characters' actions and the characters' dialogue and figure out what the characters want, like, or feel. I'm so excited to read this story today and to talk all about making inferences. Give me silent excitement, or me too, if you've ever seen a firefly. Miss Campbell has seen a firefly in Indiana, in Georgia, and in Florida. I've seen fireflies all over the place. I'm so excited to read the story with you about fireflies. And as we make inferences, I'm going to be looking for teammates who remember how we figure out what the author doesn't say. Let's start off with an example. I woke up this morning. I looked at the clock. I rushed out of bed, rushed into the shower, grabbed a quick breakfast from the refrigerator, and headed out the door. Why was I rushing out of the house? Why was I rushing out of the house? Let's think about what I said. The first thing I said is I looked at the clock. What kind of inference can you make based off of that piece of text evidence? What does that make you think? Why would I look at the clock? That's right, scholars. I looked at the clock to check the time. I felt like checking the time would help me figure out if I was late or not. When I looked at the clock, I figured out that I was late. That made me rush into the bathroom, rush into the kitchen, and rush out of the door. We just made an inference as good readers. We just figured out what I didn't say. I didn't say that I was rushing because I was late, but we were able to figure it out based on the context clues, based on what I wanted, based on my actions, and based on my dialogue. Those are the skills we're going to be using as good readers today. Fireflies. On a summer evening, I looked up from dinner through the open window to the backyard. I'm going to pause as a good reader and think about the setting. We know that the setting is where and when the story takes place. I see that this character is sitting outside. It looks like he lives somewhere rural or somewhere where there's a lot of forestry and trees. I see some yellow and blue highlights in the picture, so that makes me think that the sun was setting. The story says on a summer evening. So the setting is one summer evening outside in the backyard. It was growing dark. My treehouse was a black shape in the tree, and I wouldn't go up there now. But something flickered there a moment. I looked and it was gone. It flickered again over near the fence. Fireflies! Don't let your dinner get cold, said Mama. Did you see the firefly? I forked the meat and corn and potatoes into my mouth. Please, may I go outside? The fireflies! Mama smiled and Daddy nodded. Go ahead, they said. I ran from the table down to the cellar to find a jar. I knew where to look, behind the stairs. The jars were dusty, and I polished one clean on my shirt. Then I ran back up 2 steps at a time. Holes, I remembered, so they can breathe. And as quietly as I could, so she wouldn't catch me dulling them, I poked holes in the top of the jar with Mama's scissors. Looks like the main character, the boy, is making a jar to put the fireflies in. The author didn't say that, but I was able to make that inference based off of what the character is doing and saying. The screen door banged behind me as I ran from the house. If someone said, "Don't slam it," I wasn't listening. I called to my friends in the street, "Fireflies!" But they had come before me with polished jars and others were coming behind. Interesting, so the text says that the boy ran from the house. I'm wondering, why is he running? The author doesn't tell us, which means we need to make an inference. We need to figure out why the boy ran out of the house. I know the first thing we do when we make an inference is look at what the character says and does. I can see the boy's actions here. He's running from the house. He also says in the text that if someone said to him not to slam the door, he wasn't listening. In the picture, I see that he's smiling and he looks excited. Now I think about whether or not something like this has ever happened to me before. Sometimes when I'm excited about something, I don't listen to what my parents say. I remember one time I was so excited to go to the park that when we got close, I ran by myself, even though my parents were telling me to slow down. I just kept running because I was so excited. Now I have to think, what does that, my own experience, tell me about what the boy wants, feels, or likes? Oh, I think I know. The boy feels excited to see and catch the fireflies outside. The boy wants to be outside with his friends catching fireflies. The boy likes catching fireflies and he thinks it's fun. I can make this inference because I was looking at what the character says and does, and also thinking about what has happened to me before that I might act or say the same things. Good job, scholars. We just worked together to make our first inference in the text. The sky was darker now, my ears rang with crickets, and my eyes stung from staring too long. I blinked hard as I watched them, fireflies, blinking on, blinking off, dipping low, soaring high above my head, making white patterns in the dark. We ran like crazy, barefoot in the grass. Catch them, we cried, grasping at the lights. Suddenly a voice called out above the others, "I caught one!" And it was my own. I thrust my hand into the jar and spread it open. The jar glowed like moonlight, and I held it in my hands. I felt a tremble of joy, and I shouted, "Oh, I can catch hundreds of fireflies." So now I'm wondering, why is the boy jumping up and down and staring at the jar once he catches the firefly? The author doesn't say he's staring at the jar because, so we have to make an inference. I know exactly what I need to do to make this inference. I can see the boy's actions here. First, he jumped up and down when he caught the firefly. Now he's staring at it in the jar. In the picture, I see that he's smiling as he's holding the jar, and he's holding it really close to his face. Now I need to think about if something like that has happened to me before. Think about if something like this has happened to you before. What has happened to you like this? Me too, scholars. When I get really excited about something, I clap and jump up and down too. Or maybe I might look and smile at whatever it is that makes me happy. That makes me think that the boy is feeling excited that he finally catched a firefly. He likes looking at the firefly and he likes to see the way it glows. We can make that inference because we looked at what the character was doing and saying, and we thought about what has happened to us before. That helped us figure out what the boy wanted, felt, and liked. Good job making that inference with me, scholars. Then we dashed about, waving our hands in the air like nets, catching 2, 10, hundreds of fireflies, thrusting them into jars, waving our hands for more. How many fireflies do you think they caught? Then someone called from my house. It's time to come in now. And others called from the other houses, and it was over. My friends took jars of fireflies to different homes. I climbed the stairs to my room and set the jar on a table by my bed. Mama kissed me and turned out the light. I caught hundreds, I said. Daddy called from the hallway. See you later, alligator. After a while, crocodile, I called back. I caught hundreds of fireflies. In the dark, I watched the fireflies from my bed. They blinked off and on, and the jar glowed like moonlight. But it was not the same. The fireflies beat their wings against the glass and fell to the bottom, and they just laid there. Interesting. The boy is saying that it isn't the same watching the fireflies in the jar. He said many of them are lying at the bottom. I wonder if he's changing his mind about how much he likes the fireflies. I shut my eyes tight and put the pillow over my head. They were my fireflies. I caught them. They made moonlight in my jar. But now my jar was dark. I flung off the covers. I went to the window and opened the jar. So now I'm a little confused. He aimed the jar at the stars and he said, "Fly!" I'm wondering, why did the boy let the fireflies go? The author doesn't tell us, so we need to make an inference. I already know the boy's actions and what he says from the story. It says he looked at the jar when the lights went out. He opened the jar and he let the fireflies go. I'm thinking about some clues I see in the picture. I see he's a little sad when he looks at the jar. He doesn't smile again until he lets them go free. I'm thinking if something like this has happened to me before. Has something like this ever happened to you before? Tell me. Well, I remember one time I had a ladybug in my apartment. I really wanted to keep it, but then I felt a little bad because I wasn't letting the ladybug be with its ladybug family. So I decided to let it go out the window. I think I'm ready for my inference. The boy feels happier when he lets the fireflies free into the night sky. He wants to let the fireflies go so they can be outside and their lights can flicker. The boy likes the way the fireflies look when they light up, and he doesn't want to keep them in the jar because in the jar they got dark. Excellent job making another inference with me, readers. You're doing such a great job making these inferences. Then the jar began to glow green, then gold, then white as the moon, and the fireflies poured out into the night. Fireflies blinking on, blinking off, dipping low, soaring high above my head, making circles around the moon like stars dancing. I held the jar dark and empty in my hands. The moonlight and the fireflies swam in my tears, but I could feel myself smiling. Your thinking question or your response question will be, why does the boy feel himself smiling at the end of the story? Why does the boy feel himself smiling at the end of the story? You will need to make an inference in order to answer this question. I'm super excited to have read this story with you. Thank you for all your help in making inferences today. Fireflies. See you tomorrow.